You're listening to the Business Communicators.
Joining us now on the Business Communicators podcast is Kyle Featherstone, better known by his stage name Feather. And Kyle is a producer and DJ from Nashville, Tennessee, who just released his EP, Becoming, on January 13th. And it's great. Highly recommend it. If you love dance music, you love EDM, which I definitely do. But we'll link the show notes below. We'll link to the EP on Spotify. But Kyle, you're joining us from Minnesota today. And we just want to say thanks so much for joining us this week.
Absolutely. I appreciate you asking me. I've never done anything like this before, but I'm a big fan of podcasts myself, so I'm excited to be here.
We're glad to, I guess, introduce you to the media tour, which hopefully, you'll be well accustomed to in the many years to come. But one of the reasons why we wanted to have you on is just, kind of the work that you're doing, not necessarily as an independent artist, and we'll get more into that in a little bit, but on social media. And I think that for background, maybe I'm not the target demographic for TikTok, and Thomas isn't the target demographic for TikTok, but I think we're both addicted to the platform. And it was a few months ago, I was just scrolling through, I think it was in November or late October, I was scrolling through my For You page, and I came across your track, Safe House, and it appeared on my For You page. And as a fan of dance music and digital media, I really, really liked what I saw. In fact, flash forward a few months later, here we are today talking with you, and you're an emerging artist, independent artist. And one of the cool things about TikTok is that anyone can blow up at any given time. And rather than just plugging away and, sending your demos to, maybe music labels, why was it important for you to also pivot to TikTok to promote your work?
Well, TikTok, as I'm finding, because prior to me kind of posting that initial TikTok that you saw that kind of kickstarted a lot of my use on the platform, I wasn't a big user myself. I was just kind of in it just for fun, just because I missed the days of Vine, more or less. And my manager really encouraged me to utilize it and check it out just based off of seeing some other artists. And what's so cool about TikTok is its ability to organically reach people in an like unrivaled way these days compared to other social media. I actually get a bit of like almost like MySpace vibes, in the way that back when MySpace was around, artists could get really popular on MySpace just from word of mouth, and they had a music discovery section and all that stuff. And it kind of reminds me a little bit of that era, and that's where I kind of got my start. And it's just been really cool to see how you can get in front of so many people for free, essentially.
Yeah, it's so cool. And I guess we maybe dating ourselves a little bit, but I guess we have a mutual friend in Tom, going back to
Yeah.
the MySpace time. But I think that's what's so fascinating to me about social media and marketing, is that you can reach anyone in the world at the click of a button. And it's all about producing, great content. And I think what separates you from other independent artists that I've seen is that you really take the time, to make sure that the sound is good, that you have the loop going, that the visuals look great. And I think we were texting in our group thread the other day, and Hattie, I think, mentioned, that it seemed genuine. And I'm kind of curious, do you have a background in digital media or marketing, or was it more kind of just encouragement from your manager to help you embrace the platform?
Well, I've always enjoyed the sort of like, how would you describe it? I've always enjoyed like the active connection of social media. Obviously, there's a lot of complications these days that social media can add, but as I said earlier, since as MySpace was my early like start into dabbling into making music and uploading music and all that stuff. And since then, then we got Twitter and Facebook, and then Instagram came along, and like all these other platforms came around. And in the following years, I was actually playing in like pop punk, pop rock bands. And so I actually got a lot of hands-on experience utilizing it that way. And granted, the platforms have drastically changed in terms of algorithm and sort of restrictions and stuff, but like back then we were hustling a lot on social media. And so I guess that, like, that experience is not foreign to me, and I've always really enjoyed and appreciated like connecting and talking with people. I It's always been a big thing for me, and I know that I'm definitely not going to be able to do what I'm doing without people like helping and sharing and all that stuff. So that's always been an important part for me. Um, but I guess through the years, I just kind of picked up a bit of knack for it, and I've always been very hands-on in the branding and designing the brand and images and merch and stuff for the groups I've been playing in. Of course, including a lot of the stuff I do now. So I guess it's just been sort of a hobby passion for me that I've been able to kind of indulge in while also making music.
Very cool. Thomas, Hattie, I don't know who wants next.
I was just thinking that, from a communication standpoint, what I love about the content that you put out there, there's always a story in it. I love how you, whether it's you're going through your day, you're walking down the street somewhere and you have some music in the background. It's very visually appealing. It may seem like it's mundane for me, but where do you get your inspiration from, and what you think about before you just put it out there? Because some of it is just really interesting and spontaneous, and that's what I like about it.
Well, I'm glad that you feel that way, because sometimes I'm boring to me and I could be doing better. Like the street one you're talking about was literally just like a random idea that I had. I was like, I'm just gonna do this and see if it worked. And it kind of, we filmed it a few times and tweaked the ideas, and then we were just like, I think it kind of works. I think it's kind of fun. And everything else is, honestly, in terms of TikTok specifically, it's been a big learning experience. It's just been trying things. It's really important to me to try and stay like organic and true to myself, because I know there's a lot of trends online, and I think you can lose a lot of your own personality in those trends. Not that there's anything wrong with doing trend videos, because they're obviously, very entertaining, but I'm rather aware of how quickly one could potentially fall into unfortunate situation of unintentionally becoming or being presented as somebody you're not via social media. And I think it's really important to me to not do that, especially because I think a big thing that I've struggled with myself in the past years, and I believe most of us struggle with, is that we feel like we can't be ourselves, or we don't have a safe place to be ourselves. And that's why so many people put up a front on social media, just because they're afraid. And then eventually down the road, they've created this fake persona that they have to keep up, and it's exhausting, and they don't feel like they can be honest with anybody. And then it's really a problem, because it affects the rest of your life and your art and your craft. So I'm really trying to find ways to actively combat that issue while creating my content. And it's a big learning experience for me. Talking to a camera is interesting. Sometimes you need to almost overact so that you don't come across as boring, even though you're not trying to be boring, and all that stuff. Fortunately, I was a theater major, so I have a bit of experience in just having a bit more of that energy. But yeah, honestly, I'm glad that the content strikes you that way. It's nice to hear that, because I'm sure I get a bit narrow vision, just kind of hyper dissecting all
We
my
have
stuff.
something in common. I'm a theater major too. Yeah.
Oh, amazing.
When you mentioned MySpace, I had to go Google it just to see if it was still around, because I remember it was being sold and bought and moved different things. So for all of our listeners out there, MySpace is still alive and kicking.
I'm pretty sure
so
you can
go on
find
there.
mine still.
I think you can find everybody's from the look of it. And I remember hearing something about Justin Timberlake trying to turn it into more of a
Yeah,
music platform.
I remember hearing that.
about 5-10 years ago, but then it just kind of fell off the face of the earth. So
Yeah.
MySpace is still around for all of us nostalgic people, but I'm definitely going to have to try to remember my login now.
Maybe it'll come back.
I doubt it. But I'm going to echo what Hattie was saying, is all the videos and snippets I've seen of you is very authentic and very just personal. Nothing drives me crazier than when you see a greatly produced TikTok video, YouTube, anything like that, and then they show you the outtakes and it's like 20 hours of outtakes for a 30-second clip. And you get that feeling that, hey, we're going to do this one time. This is how it's going to be. Let's go. And so thank you for that. But my question is not only is the social media world changing, the music industry is changing. How is that affecting how your manager or how you are doing business with it?
Totally. It's been very interesting for me, obviously, since coming from a MySpace day and the following years, the bands I was in, it was a very tour driven model. Like that's how you reach people. Obviously the social media was very helpful, but you went out and you played shows and you got in front of people and you did that. And we definitely utilized that model. We actually kind of modified that model a bit. Instead of like actually playing shows, if we couldn't for some reason, we would go follow tours around and promote to people in the line. So it's like, it was a grind, and it was like a lot of putting yourself out there. You just go up to a stranger and be like, hey, do you want to listen to my music? Are you interested? And so it was a lot of face-to-face stuff like that. And even in the following, I'd say in the past, maybe 5 years now, coming from my previous experience. But I think it's kind of cool because honestly, the touring model is what broke my bands. Like, it was not sustainable. It was exhausting, financially impossible to break even, things like that. So I think it's really cool that streaming has now become a really amazing way for artists to create a career and do it from home, especially with a lot of the technology aiding home producers and things like that without needing to go to a big studio. So we've just been trying to really embrace that and find ways to encourage people to stream, to find playlists that we fit in and things like that, just to kind of get the music in front of people, because that's how people are discovering music. Not to mention in a time like now where there's no live music, it's the only way they're finding things. And luckily we've been able to kind of partner that with TikTok and other social media, and kind of just say like, you came across my video or you thought it was funny or quirky. Well, I also have music you can also check out. We've lately been trying to reach a lot of streamers and things, because people are, that's been booming. Obviously, people have a lot of time at home to be streaming or trying to make careers streaming. And I'm not a streamer, but I've been hearing there's a lot of difficulties with using music in their streams. And so I'm an independent artist, and so I don't have any of the obligatory ties to labels or things like that actually own the physical music. So I'm lucky to be able to try and reach out to these people and say, hey, you can use my music for that if you want. I make my own blog sometimes too, and I know how difficult it can be to find decent music that you actually like or want to use. So I totally relate in that sense. So if I can get it in front of people, they can put it on their playlist, and that can help the streaming numbers additionally. So I kind of think it's a good thing. And it's just about how you can find ways to embrace it. Fighting it's not going to be your friend. It's inevitable. It's just the way it's going to go. It's going to change, and it's just going to be in your best interest to learn how to utilize that and what works for you.
I absolutely love that. I mean, to me, it sounds like you've got really that entrepreneurial mindset, right? And that you've had to wear multiple hats as an independent artist to elevate and grow your brand. You mentioned streaming. I think that is one of the things that really has changed during COVID-19, right? You can't go to Coachella, you can't go to EDC, you can't go to Ultra, you can't go to all these festivals. So a lot of artists have turned to online streaming, whether it's their sets or trying to get songs on different, radio shows or live streams. I mean, your song appeared, in a Lithium stream, Smoke, which we played at the top of the show. And, that's a huge break for an artist like you. But I'm kind of curious from your perspective, and maybe just to provide like a peek inside to the music industry, furthering what Thomas said. But for our audience out there, what is the main difference between, being an independent artist and being someone who is tied to a label and already mainstream?
It's a great question, and I might not totally know all the answers. I've only ever been an independent artist, so I don't totally know what restrictions or complications would be from that. Of course, when you work with a label or somebody else that owns the music, they're getting a percentage of that, and you kind of have to go through them or whatever your agreement is with that situation. Obviously, there's a lot of benefits to having a relationship with somebody like that in terms of getting on other playlists for other streaming numbers and access to relationships with other artists and content creators and all that stuff. So it's definitely a pro and con of both scenario, and not necessarily something I'd ever be against. But I don't know. Yeah, I love that I can try and help other creators like freely at my own will. I'm sure a lot of other artists would like to be able to do that, and sometimes it's just out of your hands, and that's okay. That's just how it is.
It's interesting. You talk about helping other artists, and you talk about the labels, and you hear about these mega groups. And now my mind's immediately racing. Are these mega groups like the labels starting to try to cram them together? But with the authenticity of the music, I think it's so important that you are lending yourself out and sharing and getting your word out there, because I think it's so important that while we're communicators, we have to remember that communicating with multiple senses. So the written word on top of the spoken word, or the music on top of the visual cues. And so that's why I'm just totally like floored, and probably going to be absolutely worthless for the rest of the day watching your music videos or your TikTok videos. So thank you for that.
Yeah.
And I don't think I have a question now, so sorry.
Well, I mean, it brought something to mind, because like you're saying, I do think it's a really interesting time, not only for artists or musicians, but all sorts of artists, in the way that social media and digital media is really starting to fuse so many parameters or mediums of art and content together. Like TikTok is a perfect example of music meshing with video, meshing with photography, like whatever. Like there's so many parameters that are now suddenly connected. So many artists' songs that have blown up on TikTok probably wouldn't have without a video component. And we're really entering in a huge collaboration period, which is not something I've really experienced before in my musical career. Like, of course, collaborations happened before, but in the past, it seemed much more rare. It was very here and there, whereas now you're seeing, like, look at the if you were to go scroll through Spotify and look at a lot of the top tracks, it's a lot of collaboration, because people have learned and figured out that collaboration is the key to success and reaching people. Like, hit songs are rarely made by just one person. They're made by a team of writers and producers and the performer and mixing engineers and all these things. Like, that's collaboration. But you can also expand that into, multiple performers or multiple content creators or whatever. Like, and that is only going to help each other. Like, in my past, there used to be this unfortunate, like, undertone of competition, and like I even felt that myself. It was just the culture of this music scene, which was unfortunate, because it ultimately only prevented all of us from succeeding. And now with the aid of social media and this massive connection we have with each other all the time, we are able to see that we can all succeed simultaneously. There is no short number of fans or artists in the world. Like, if we help each other, it will help each other, and that is the solution to the problem. And so that's why I think that it's just a really cool time, and I think if you figure that out, it can really help. And it took me a bit too. I think everybody likes to be able to say they can do it themselves, but that's just kind of getting your ego in check, which is a super difficult thing to do.
I thought it was interesting when you talked about collaborations, because when I think about collaborations some of the music that I listen to, there's always hip hop artists. They are the biggest when it comes to collabing on a song. You can have
Yep.
an emerging artist such as a Megan Thee Stallion who collaborated with Beyonce and just kind of blew up from there. My question for you is, what artist would you like to collaborate? Who's at the top of your list?
Great question. I would love to speak this into existence for myself. Um, I would love to. So I kind of like top three. I mean, there's a lot of people. I like so many different types of music, but my top three at the current moment, my favorite band of all time is Coldplay. I would love to find a way to work with them someday. I love how they've literally grown with me as an artist since I started playing piano years ago, and their music's grown and all that stuff. So that's just kind of like a nostalgic one close to my heart. And then my other two current favorite artists are electronic artists, Odessa and Elenium, I think would be really wonderful. They've really influenced me and changed my perception of dance music and stuff like that. And so that would be just an amazing opportunity.
And I know that dance music and electronic dance music always has that kind of similar style, but it also pulls on the kind of the history of music. Are there any sort of styles of music that kind of play into when you're cutting a track, or goofing off, saying that, hey, I want to kind of work it this way or work it that way? What are some of your influences?
Totally. I really like trying to find ways to pull in just my previous musical experience, like I've mentioned, in playing in like pop rock bands. I like a lot more organic elements like guitar, piano, drums like that. I, I tend to approach my drums and percussion a little more organically and as like a kit, just because it's what I've always kind of done, and it's what feels a bit at home. Obviously, I'm trying to kind of like stretch that here and there just to try new genres, because ultimately the electronic genre is a relatively new thing for me. Like I didn't really start doing this till about 4 years ago, so it's still a new exciting world for me. Um, so that's a big one. But I also just love a lot of other genres, like I've said, even if it's like trap or hip hop or more of that like indie kind of. I don't know if anybody here is familiar with Bon Iver, but I actually lived in the city he's from, so I got a really healthy dose of Bon Iver for a few years, and I think what he does is really incredible, and it's not anything most people would associate with electronic music, but just the sort of emotionality of that is something I've always appreciated. Would love to pull things like that in. Um, I'm really trying to find ways to use my voice more. I used to sing quite a bit, and it's just been put on the back burner a while. And I think it's something not a lot of you don't see a lot of producers or DJs doing. Maybe it's because they can't. I'm not sure, but that's something else I like to try to keep in mind and toy with here and there.
That's so cool. I love how you're constantly pushing your creative mind, and that you're taking from past experiences to enhance your current skill set. I just think that that's awesome, and I think that's what all creators should do, whether in communications, whether you're in music, arts. I think it's so important. And again, we've got Kyle Featherstone on the Business Communicators podcast, and as we mentioned at the top of the interview, his new EP Becoming debuted last week, January 13th, and it's 5 tracks. You can find it on Spotify. We'll link it below. But Kyle, when it comes to the creative process of developing an EP, what did that process look like for you? Not only, when it comes to creating the music, when it comes to creating the sounds, but the promotional aspect of it, where there were vision boards. Walk us through that process of creating Becoming.
Sure. So it's actually been a really long process. Um, some of the songs on the EP are 2 to 3 years old. Um, Ultimately, when I decided I wanted to put something out, I was just feeling like I had to put something out. It's hard for me to be a musician or an artist without having something to like show. Um, and so I just decided that I was gonna put together an EP and just pick a handful of songs that I made over the past 4 years of when I decided to quit my touring band at the time and get more into learning how to produce and play with the electronic world a little more. At the time, I had no idea what I was gonna make, what it was gonna sound like, and there was a few years there where it was just weirdness, just you know trying things and feeling lost, a lot of frustration and feeling stuck. And it honestly probably wasn't until maybe last year when quarantine really set in, where I was kind of forced to um, put like kind of hunker down a bit more and decide I really had to get some things finished. At the time, I was feeling really plateaued. Um, and I took a production course, which kind of helped me um, push through some of those things. And finally, I was able to fish out some of these ideas I had been crafting over the few years into something that I felt like was a product I felt comfortable sharing. And I say that precautiously just because I'm, of course, and nothing is ever finished for me, unfortunately. But I feel like most creators probably understand that mindset. It's a bit of a curse. So when I got to that point, yeah, I realized that a big part of this journey of leaving a sort of previous musical identity and venturing off into a new realm and creating songs, not knowing what I was doing or what it was going to sound like, and there was a bit of a personal identity crisis I had, and then feeling comfortable wanting to share these things that were so different for myself, for different for anybody that had previously followed me or listened to the music I made. And like we were talking about earlier, that sort of struggle of being yourself is a sort of, it's a difficult thing to feel comfortable sharing. And I knew I had to share music because that's been an important part of the process for myself. This sort of metaphor emerged of that journey of becoming someone new and sharing that part of you and the things that aid to that, whether it's things in life, uh, love, um, losing people or things and all that stuff. So that's kind of where that came from. And to address your concept or your question about like vision boards and things, I actually am a vision boarder. Um, I so I have like a general like life vision board of just things and goals and stuff like that. And then in terms of the like more, I don't know, like artistic or conceptual or like visual side of things, I really love creating like kind of like mood boards and things that inspire the direction and the vibe of what you're looking for, and kind of creating things like that and showing them to my manager or friends and getting their feedback. Like I talked about with the collaboration earlier, like that's another example. Even if they're maybe not publicly part of the final product, there's a lot of behind the scenes work that can make a big difference in that. And I've really learned how important that can be and how it really does help you get where you're trying to go. I used to be the type of guy who was like, I'm gonna do it myself, I'll figure it out. Like I want to be able to say I did it myself. There's a big ego component there, but it's hard to do all that stuff yourself. You're just not going to be that great at everything. And so it's been really awesome having people help me find ways to execute like the pieces of the idea that are like in my head, because it can be hard to kind of figure out how to get there.
Teamwork makes the dream work when it's all said
It
and done with.
does.
You can't go at it alone. Make sure you lean on your friends and lean on your coworkers and your support group. So
Totally. And that, like, I mean, this is a business podcast. Like the same principle applies. Like some of my favorite companies I've worked for are ones where I feel like my input matters, and I'm a valued member of a team, and we all approach an obstacle together and figure it out. So like it is the key. It's all teamwork and collaboration.
Absolutely. And I think having that mindset, knowing that it's okay to ask for help and to have that group of trusted advisors that you can go to give you
Totally.
honest and real feedback, that's huge. That's absolutely
Totally.
huge.
And it is, I'm not saying it's easy to receive criticism or feedback. It is hard, but you have to trust, like you said, trust is a big thing. If you don't trust the people that are on your team, what's the point? Like you have to trust that what they're telling you is for the best interest of what's going on. Like my manager will tell me things sometimes, and I'm like, my ego gets a little wounded, and I'm like kind of hurt and upset, and I'm like, yeah, but like, why is he telling you this? Like, his goal is not to like make you feel bad or try to, be the alpha. He has your best interests in mind, and you have to trust that that's why he's here. You have to trust that that's why you go to these people in your life or your coworkers. That's why they're part of the team. Because if that doesn't exist, then it's completely defeating the whole point of working with them.
Preach.
Amen.
It sounds well, Kyle, it's been absolutely great having you on the Business Communicators podcast. And, I know it's a little bit of a different route for us to take, but I knew back in November when I found you on TikTok that I wanted to reach out to you, and you put out your community number on TikTok. And I think that's where I connected with you on community, which I think is great. But want to use this time for you to, let our audience know where they can find you on social media, how they can connect with you, where they can listen to your music. And yeah, this is your time.
All my socials, the exception of Twitter, my handle is Feather, just at Feather. Twitter is Feather Official. Still working on that one. But in easiest way, when you get there and want to reach out, like I always do my best to respond to people. Like I said earlier, you support me, how can I support you back? That's really my goal, and I'll try to do that as long as I can. But in all my socials, I'm a big fan of a link tool. So I have a link tree that will get you anywhere you need to go to hear the music. Like was mentioned, I do have a community number that I've really enjoyed connecting with people on. It makes it a lot easier to respond to people than sifting through DMs on 6 different platforms. It's just a nice area to go there, and just kind of like a appreciation gift. If you do text me, I've been sending people just a link for a free merch bundle, just like a little thank you. Hopefully get you swagged up if you're a festival fan before live music comes back. But yeah, please reach out, follow me, talk to me, let me know how I can help you back. And I appreciate anybody taking the time to check out the music.
Well, I think it's worth listening to the new EP Becoming, and definitely sign up and follow Feather on community, and he'll send you pins. I don't have.
Yeah, there it is.
Yeah, I don't have all the merch around me, but I've got the pin. But Kyle Featherstone, thank you so much for joining us on the Business Communicators podcast this week. We appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. It was a blast.
You've been listening to the Business Communicators.